live here. All right, we should be live.
Okay, awesome. Welcome everyone to the Brian Tracy Experience, episode number 1. This is going to be all about personal and professional development with Brian Tracy himself, and it's co-hosted by me, his son, Michael Tracy, and my wonderful sister, Christina Tracy Stein. We will be talking about almost everything. So we're just going to have a casual conversation. One of the questions that Christina and I get all the time is, what was it like growing up with Brian Tracy as your father? And so this podcast is going to answer that question.
Yeah.
So we're gonna keep it casual, kind of like we're all sitting around, having drinks or a dinner. So with that said, hey, how you doing, Dad?
Well, I'm doing great. I wanted to tell some of our friends who may not know, but I've spoken for 40 years in 84 countries to 5 million people all over the world. I've written 96 books and produced hundreds of audio and video programs, which is why I'm relatively well known, and I like to think popular. And I've learned a lot of stuff, and I love to share it with some of our friends.
Okay, great. So you're a voracious reader. You've taught me, how to read properly with pens and how to actively read. What are you reading right now, or what is one of your favorite books? I know you hate the question. What's one of your favorite books? But what is one of the favorite books you're reading right now?
Well, it's this one. I just got it from Amazon. It cost almost $100, and it's The Great Ideas of Western Civilization.
Wow.
And, it's about 1,000 pages. It's an unbelievably big book. But I'm just so hungry for this kind of ideas, and I buy these books on a regular basis. They say that human beings are the only creatures who buy more books than they'll ever be able to read.
Yes, but each book, I feel, look, I'm guilty of a hoarding book collection, but each book represents an idea, whether you read it or not, and just you're surrounded by ideas. So, yes.
Well, this book, and I have 3 others written by Mortimer Adler, who's one of the smartest people in history. He's got incredible background, and his most famous book is How to Read a Book, which I read decades ago. And I think everybody who reads should read How to Read a Book, because you think you know how to read a book, but this description shows you how to get the very most, at the very least, use of time in reading a book. And then I began to read other books that he has.
One of the great ideas he had in that book, Dad, was if you can only understand 10% of a book, it's still worth reading, because the next time you read it, you'll understand 50% and then 90%.
Now, here's the key to reading a book: is underline with a red pen. Always underline. Notice, but in school, what they do is they teach you don't make any marks in the books because someone else will be using it. But you own these books. Write, put X's, put exclamation points and stars and underline, and so on. So when you go back to review the book, it's very easy to dart from underline point to underline point, and it makes it much more enjoyable to read. Anyway, I'll pass that on to anybody.
One of the stories I tell about you, Dad, is when I was young, like 5 years old or something, and I'm going through the books on your bookshelf, and I open up one of your books, and there's all these like pen marks in it, and I look at you and I say, Dad, why are you scribbling in your books? I'm not allowed to scribble in my books, And you were like, oh, no. He's all, when I read a book for the first time, I read it with a blue pen. And then when I read it for the second time, I read it with a red pen. And you find new insights and new ideas each time you read it. So changing the color of the pen gives you a new opportunity to find those things. So,
and I don't know if they do it and what age they start doing this, but like my kids in Julia and Will in 10th and 12th grade have to annotate their books. So not only are they underlining, they also have to like write comments in the side and point out main ideas and connecting. So they're really teaching active reading, which is great.
Here's the other thing is that it's not how much you read, but how much you remember.
Right.
This is so important. It's not just, that's why speed reading, I got my reading speed up to 200-300 words a minute. And I used to teach speed reading, but the fact is you can't speed read anything of any value. You've got to slow down. Here's something I learned from an expert. He said, all learning takes place in the pauses. All where you actually turn over what you just read in your mind and then go on. If all you do is read, you remember nothing. But if you slow down, so it's how much you remember. So don't worry about going slow because you're getting the maximum value out of whatever you're reading if you go slow and annotate. And that's what you guys have learned. And that's what everybody learns when they take a course in rapid reading.
One of the things I've noticed too, Dad, when you speak, and it's something that you notice you're a really good professional speaker. The best ones are the ones that use silence strategically to highlight points, and the new ones, the young ones, the excited ones are the ones that talk way too fast and don't pause enough. And so it's something I try to remember when I'm speaking. But you've mastered it. There's those long pauses where people go, they reflect on the point, they ask themselves the rhetorical question, and then you just let it sit there for a while. And it's a kind of a beautiful moments to watch. So it's interesting because the corollary in reading is the same thing, is to stop and kind of chew on it a little bit and let it digest.
Well, after I've been speaking for many years, I attended a session with some other speakers, and they brought in a coach, Ron Arden, wonderful man. He became a dear friend of our whole family. He's passed on now. And Ron Arden was brilliant. He would sit and watch. I would hire him and pay him thousands of dollars just to sit there and watch me speak to an audience. And he would go, and then afterwards, he would give me a debrief on what I had done right and what I'd done wrong. And so it was wonderful. But here's my point. He said, everything is in the pause. He said, in music, for example, you have the same 7 notes. But what makes a piece of music great is the pauses in between the notes. And I think of that 5th symphony by Beethoven was bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Everybody in the world knows that piece of music because of the pause. It's just so beautiful, and it's the same in speaking.
Yeah. There's that verse in the Tao Te Ching. I'm not going to remember it verbatim, but it's what makes a vase valuable or usable? What's the utility of a vase? It's not the clay pot or the structure. It's the empty space inside the vase. And it's like what makes a house useful? It's not the walls and the roof, it's the empty space that the walls and the roof create inside the house.
Right.
And so it's really similar to pauses and stopping when you're reading and thinking.
Yes.
So
good conversation has a lot of pauses in it because people process the conversation, or you process what you're reading, or people attend concerts and pay fortunes to go to and sit with thousands of others. And then you have the piano player sits there and goes, bum, 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 and audiences give them standing ovations because of the pauses. So good thing to remember when you're talking to people. Talking too fast means the person has no opportunity to process what you're saying. So the same as being a good speaker, you say something and let it sit there and let people think about it. I'll give you an example that I use when I'm speaking to an audience. I'll say, before we begin, may I ask you a question? And everybody says yes. Now you have physical mental and emotional buy-in before you open your mouth. Then I say, how many people here would like to double their income in the next year or so? And I raise my hand. And the whole audience raises their hand. Now you have the audience involved physically, mentally, emotionally, and what's going on in their mind. How do you do it? How can that be possible? And this is in the first 30 to 60 seconds of the talk. I have the entire audience rapt, listening, leaning forward, saying to the people, shh, 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 shh. Okay. And then I tell them a simple technique.
So just a quick reminder for the audience, we're going to be doing a Q&A at the end of the session. So if you have any questions for Brian or Christina or myself, throw them in the comment box, and we will write them down and try to get to everybody's questions at the end.
Yeah, definitely. Dad, I want to say one thing since we're talking about pausing. I know when we use examples in the Speaking Academy, one of the things we emphasize is pausing to emphasize or bring greater meaning to the things you say. And one of the examples that I love and use is, the idea that you can say, I love you, or you can say, I love you. And it really changes, just the emphasis and the meaning behind that. So just shifting the way you speak, the pace and the pausing, makes a big difference in how it's received. So
yes, that's a wonderful example. Oh, I love you. As opposed to I love you. I mean, just the emphasis and the pause.
Yep.
And you don't babble it out. So you could become a great conversationalist. Now, here's another thing, and I learned this from Earl Nightingale many years ago. Every time you learn a new word, it opens the door to 5 or 10 or even 15 other words. A new word actually expands your mind and enables you to express yourself with greater clarity. So Harvard University did a study on this, and what they did is they had people learn one new word per day for a year. And then they went back to see what difference it made in their lives. The average person had increased their income 40%, been promoted twice, was in a bigger office with a bigger desk, was earning more money. It was the most astonishing thing. And the only thing they'd done differently was sit and read with a dictionary by your hand. Now, there's a thing called a stenographer's notebook, which is a small book like this. I've got a raft of them here, and has a line down the center. So whenever you read and you come across a word that you are not clear about, just write it down on the one side and then write the meaning on the other. And it would be astonished, in 1 year, your vocabulary will expand by hundreds, maybe even thousands of words. And your ability to express yourself, to speak, is the most important key to communication, to success, to income, to a higher class of people, to better people. Everything depends upon your vocabulary. And it's a very simple thing to just always read with a dictionary at your hand and a little notebook to write down the words that you're not clear about.
Which I remember you carrying around as a child. You had a notebook. It was like a flip notebook, and it had a line down the center. And it'd be like your pile of things you carry with you, your blue pen and your red pen and your notebook, and your definition. Yeah, totally.
Well, I try to set a good example.
Yeah.
So pre-smartphone. Now we have.
Yes, I know, right? Jeez.
Dictionaries and thesaurus and all kinds of things right in our pocket.
Yep. Totally.
So one of the things that people talk or ask me about is, what was it like growing up with Brian Tracy as your father? What were some of the lessons that he taught you? And one of my favorite stories is I think I got in trouble, because I was a young man. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, and I was reluctant to be like forthright and honest with you. And you said, Michael, you said, if you tell me the truth, you'll never be in trouble. If you tell me the truth, you'll never be in trouble. And so I told you the truth, and you said, well, what did you learn? And I told you what I learned, and I wasn't in trouble. And so I went on and I got in a lot more trouble. But every single time you said, well, what happened? And if I told you the truth, I knew it was like my get out of jail free card. And then so flash forward, I'm an adult in my career, and every time you sometimes you make mistakes or you have setbacks, and your boss would come to you and say, hey, Michael, what happened? And I didn't have a fear of the truth. And so I just told the truth, and they would be like, okay, well, what did we learn? And there was no trouble. But if I had not learned that lesson, like, in those formative years, just to not be afraid of the truth, I can imagine, maybe saying something that wasn't true, and having like a massive reputational issue for the rest of my life. And so I think that's a really valuable thing that I learned from you, and then everyone listening to this can now take and learn from that as well.
Well, I just read something recently. I've read it many times. It said that if you always tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
That's true.
Because the truth is the truth. But people who don't tell the truth or tell half-truths, they have to have a very good memory.
Keep track of the lies.
Or they'll get caught. Somebody will ask them and they'll come up with a different answer. So always tell the truth. And you guys have been really great at that. And teaching your children, now that you have children, the same thing. Always tell the truth and then don't worry about it. And you'll never get in trouble.
Yeah. About Dad with the telling of the truth, because I agree. That's if I had to think of like one kind of core lesson was, tell the truth, you don't get in trouble. But I think not, learning that and being, always having integrity and telling the truth is one thing. The other thing that comes with that is the fact that if you get into the habit of telling the truth, or you feel like you can, and you feel like you won't get into trouble, I think it allows you to be more authentic and allows you to take risks, because making a mistake is inevitable. And if you're not afraid of making a mistake and you're not afraid of sharing about making the mistake, then it allows you to, explore and be curious and creative and take risks. So I think starting and learning, as a child to be honest and not worry about making mistakes because of that, the consequence of lying or the consequence of making those mistakes really been great.
That's great. You know what I always say when you make a mistake, or when anybody makes a mistake, I say, excuse my language, I say, oh, well, shit happens. And then you move on.
Yeah. One of the other things that you taught me that has played a significant role for me and my kids is you always talked about that it's always okay to change your mind. You can make a decision, you can be heading in a direction, but if you get new information and you decide it's not the right decision anymore, it's okay to change your mind. You don't have to finish out something that is not serving you and, potentially causing damage. And, I think we talked about this in terms of relationships, getting into relationships with people where it wasn't working out, or the friendships faded, or the romantic relationships, like you grew apart, but that you don't have to stay. When you have new information and new experience, you can change your mind.
The longer you stay on the wrong road, the longer it takes to get back. So
now let me comment on that, because here's something that really helped me is they say that if you're on the wrong road, turn back. Now, the follow-up to that is that the person who turns back and goes back to where they got off the right road is moving ahead faster than the person on the wrong road. So going back is actually moving forward faster than any other way that you can do it. Now, here's the main problem that people have is fear of disapproval. There's books after books after books. There's the Let Them theory with Mel Robbins that sells 3 million copies. People are just gaga. What? You can just allow people to think what they want? Sure. In other words, don't fear or worry about the disapproval of someone else. The only person that counts is you. And if you are happy with your decision, then you know what I would say, but if you're happy with your decision, the heck with them. And if you live like that and you tell your kids, you can always change your mind. That is so important, to know that you can change your mind. So if you tell the truth, you never get into trouble, and you can always change your mind. That's wonderful because it's so liberating for young people. And then as an adult, it's liberating as an adult.
Yeah. One of the things that you encouraged me to do after college was door-to-door sales. And I thought, originally it was like, oh, he wants Michael to learn how to sell. But after that experience, what I realized was you just wanted to have the fear of rejection beaten out of me. And it worked. And I think what I took from that experience, more so than anything else, was, I didn't have to care about what other people thought about me. And so I was able to make my own decisions and be my own person. And I thought that was a powerful lesson. And I would not have done that had you not encouraged me to do that.
Well, that's wonderful. And by the way, I just want to thank our friends who are giving us comments. They're just wonderful comments, and we're so happy to see you and hear from you and talk to you. And I wish I could respond to everyone, but we're going to throw it open for questions a little bit later, and we'll pick some of the best questions that you've put on us.
So, Dad, we can actually start now if you want. I mean, we got a couple kind of good ones, and this one is actually I don't know the answer to this one. So the question is, who inspired you to be a speaker? Who is your inspiration?
Well, it's really basic. First of all, I was excited about the subject of personal development, personal growth, because it was so helpful to me. The importance of self-confidence and setting goals and hard work. When I was a young man, I was a laborer. Actually, when I was 23, I was working on a farm during the harvest. And I began to ask this question: why is that some people are more successful than others? Now, it seems like a simple question, but I later learned in a studying of metaphysics for about 4,000 hours and 3 years that sometimes a single question can change the direction of your life.
Yeah.
A single question. And so my question was, why are some people more successful than others? So I began to study it. And the law of attraction works. You start to attract into your life books and people and seminars and opportunities. And then when I learned something, I did what most people don't do, is I immediately tried it out. And, I learned later, nothing works. Nothing works the first time, the second time, the third time. Successful people fail over and over again and fall short over and over again. But they keep their eyes on the prize, as they say. And the prize is to be successful and earn more money and have a better standard of living. And by gum, nothing can stop you from doing it. One of the things that I repeat over and over is you can learn any skill you need to learn to achieve any goal that you want to achieve. That encapsulates basically the rules for success. You can learn anything. Christina, you've been so wonderful. You've gotten a PhD in psychology and therapy. And Michael, you've gotten a degree in success and speaking, and you have complete confidence in speaking. Why? It's because you're just not afraid. We don't worry about the opinions of other people. If they don't like you, well, the heck with them or something else. And and that's wonderful to have that self-confidence. One of the things that is so popular, books, tapes, articles, podcasts, and everything else, is don't worry about the opinions of other people. They're basically like cigarette smoke in the wind. They come and go. Don't worry about it. Just do what you think is the right thing to do. And you're always free
to change your mind.
To change your mind.
Yeah, I heard something interesting. They've popularized this concept of mastery. It takes 10,000 hours to become a master at something. But I was listening to a podcast, and I forget who it was that said it, but they said, well, is it hours? Is it based on duration, or is it based on iteration? And that kind of struck me because, if it's 10,000 iterations, then you can do 5 or 10 iterations per hour, and you can get to a level of mastery much faster. So that ability to not be afraid and to take a step forward and move, with action and start an iteration, even though it's uncomfortable and inconvenient, you learn faster through iteration, not just with duration. So I thought that was a really interesting concept.
Well, there's two additional points to the 10,000 hours to mastery theory by Malcolm Gladwell, and it is that if you have a natural talent in that area, you can become excellent very quickly. Mozart was playing beautiful violin by the age of 6. I mean, he had a natural talent for music. The second one is motivation. If you really love the subject, which you will if you have a natural talent for it, you can master it very quickly. It doesn't take 10,000 hours. It's 10,000 hours if you do not have your heart totally in the subject. But if you have your heart in it and you're excited by it, you can hardly wait. You'll become very good very fast, amazingly good, amazingly fast.
Well, Dad, I mean, one thing that I work with clients on is the idea that everybody has a natural talent. Everybody has something that they're good at. You have, you can call it a superpower, you can call it your natural talent, but I think we come into this world with a knack for something, whether we're really, we're empathic or we're good with technology or whatever it is, there is something that you are good at. And then when you take that and you combine it with what you're passionate about, the passion is sort of that like fuel that fires the development and the improvement of that natural talent. And so, like you're talking about Mozart, it's like sometimes for people who, they have children who are excellent musicians, but they're struggling in another subject and they hire a tutor to to improve the subject they're struggling in, when in reality, if they just cultivate the natural talent, that's far better for that child or any of us to be like, what am I really good at? And how can I really, facilitate the growth in this area and become even better?
But there's also something that I remember you telling me, Dad, a long time ago. You said, Michael, no one starts out good at anything, and no one enjoys doing things that they're not good at. Right? So that there is a gap between starting out and feeling forward and not knowing how to do it and not necessarily enjoying it. But if you can suffer through those moments and build the necessary competencies, you can actually start to enjoy it. And when you start to enjoy it, then you start feeling those feelings of motivation and inspiration and creativity and the things that go with like higher levels of competence in that area. So, but there is a gap. There's an inherent gap between starting out at something and not enjoying it, and then learning how to do it better, and then starting to enjoy it.
There's something that I have taught for years. I taught myself. Everything that I teach in my speaking comes from my own experience and the experience of others combined with mine. But here's something really important: is first of all, you can learn any skill you need to learn to be successful. So what I do, and I've just written my second version of this, my third edition. It's called Goals, and this is not a promotion, but this is the best book on it. Sold 1 million copies in 39 languages, and it is a life-changing goal. When people come up to me on the street and they say, "You changed my life, you made me rich," I say, "Well, what of my materials was so helpful to you?" And they always beam and they say, "It was the goal. It was the goals. I never understood the importance of goals." So you start off, and I say, so pick a single goal. What one goal would help you the most? And say you want to double your income. Well, there's nothing wrong about that. That's a great goal. As a matter of fact, we always have that goal. And if you don't set the goal, you won't achieve it. If you do set it, then the next question you ask, and I call it the magic wand question. I say, imagine you could wave a magic wand and you could be absolutely excellent at any one skill. What one skill would help you the most to achieve your most important goal? And write it down. Write it down, write it down, write it. If it's not written, it's like cigarette smoke. So write it down. So here's my goal, and here's the one skill that I will achieve. Then the next question you ask, and it's the magic word for success, is how. How do I become excellent at that one skill? And this can change your life forever. You became excellent at door-to-door sales, and then you became a manager. Then you made more money than you ever imagined possible. But geez, was it hard at the beginning? Oh, geez, everything is hard. Everything is hard before it's easy.
Yes.
Everything's hard before it's easy. Don't complain. Just get on with it. Just get on with it and get through that initial part. But you should always be working on the most important skill that can help you to improve your life more than anything else.
Sorry, Dad. I'm getting texts from Mom about potential meeting that you have at 11:30. So just bear with me. I'm trying to figure out what client it is and if we can reschedule. You're a busy guy.
Yeah. We get so many people here.
Do you know who it is, Dad? Do you know who you're speaking with at 11:30?
You guys get to see us organizing our time live, right?
Yeah.
Brian Tracy, how does it work?
What I can do is I can take a quick pause while you guys talk, and I'll delay the other call, and then I'll come back.
Okay, well let's figure out who it is first, because if it's
exactly what it is.
If it's a paid client, I'll double check real fast.
No, I know exactly what it is.
What is it?
You, Lanny, can delete me from this for a few moments.
Yes,
Well,
that's a good idea. Let's delegate it.
Let's reschedule, or we'll just push it. We'll push it 15 minutes, and then we'll take some more questions, and then we'll wrap this up, and then we'll do this again next week.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's a friend calling and a prearranged call, so we can put it off for as long as we need to.
Okay, good. Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
All right, so Dad, you've written like a bajillion books. Which do you have a favorite?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I travel, people will come up to me and rave about a particular book. But my favorite is the first book I wrote. It's called The Maximum Achievement. And this book is a total life changer. It's the essence of everything that I ever learned up to that date of 1990. And so it's a beautiful book, Maximum Achievement. However, I wrote a second book called Advanced Selling Skills, and I was speaking at a conference for 4,000 people last week, and they came up to me from everywhere saying that this book changed their lives and made them rich. Many of them were earning more than $1 million a year in straight sales, and very much in door-to-door sales like you. I mean, these guys that started off, they were struggling, they were poor, and they came across advanced selling skills, and they began to study it, and then they began to teach it to others. And today they're rich. They're doing millions and billions of dollars worth of sales in this group. Now, another book I love, of course, is Eat That Frog. Eat That Frog is how to get more things done faster. It's the key to self-discipline. And people say they became rich after they read Eat That Frog. And each book has a theme that can be life or business or family changing. So it's really hard. But those three, the Maximum Achievement, Advanced Selling Skills, and Eat That Frog, are life changers, and they've sold hundreds of thousands and millions in as many as 55 languages.
Yeah, Advanced Selling Strategies was a college textbook. It was in the college textbook store.
Yes, thank you.
And it was it's a thick. I mean, so those two actually probably are packed with, like, Maximum Achievement and Advanced Selling Strategies are packed with ideas. I mean, it's not a single idea book. It is
encyclopedia of ideas.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, those are actually two of my favorites too. So,
and I would say also, Dad, one of my favorites is Many Miles to Go, when you talk about your Sahara crossing, because personally, I love when you bring yourself into your books, and that's more of a personal story versus your, brilliance in these encyclopedias. But yes, I also think, like, Maximum Achievement is quite a spectacular book.
Now, I've heard that there's a brilliant young speaker in California who's just published a book on selling, and I'm trying to think, what was the name of that book? Can you remember?
Thank you, Dad, for the opportunity to plug my book. It's called Sales Journey, and it's inspired by my journey through the sales process. From door to door to corporate sales and business to business, and in true Brian Tracy fashion, it's packed full of tactical and practical things that people can use. So, but thank you, Sales Journey. It's on Amazon. I appreciate the opportunity for the plug, Dad. Thank you.
No, there's a brilliant psychotherapist in Santa Monica who's just recently written a book as well. Do you remember the title of that? Christina, maybe you can help us.
Our intentions are not to plug anything. Yes, I am currently finishing the book. It's called The Accomplished Woman, 12 Steps to Redefine Success and Live Life on Your Terms.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Wow.
Thank you. That comes out in the fall.
And this is based on years and years of research into really successful women and what they do differently. And Christina teaches them, this is what they do differently, and this is how you develop this skill or this quality. So it's very practical. It's basically a handbook for success, but especially aimed at women in today's world. And it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah. I was at a book writing workshop, and they were asking me about the book writing process, and I was talking about your process that you've created. And they said, well, what about AI? Can I just use AI to write a book? I'm like, well, yeah, you can absolutely use AI to write a book, but then you won't have written it. Therefore, you won't have internalized it, because the act of writing is itself like an exercise in thinking and clarifying your thoughts. And once you've done that, then you can actually stand on a stage and speak about those thoughts and help the audience achieve higher levels of understanding of whatever your topic is. But just from the perspective that writing is an exercise in thinking is something that I think AI can't take over, which it seems like it's taking over most things.
Well, AI can help you develop a framework, but then we'll say that it's hard. It's easy to write a book. You can just babble it out and have it recorded, but it's very hard to edit. And in the editing is where the pauses are. That's where the great music comes in your books.
Yeah.
So the editing. So if AI can help you, give you a basic framework, and then what you do is you do the polishing. Many years ago, I lived in Johannesburg, South Africa, and I had a friend, and he was a diamond polisher. And I talked to him about it. It's a very specialized skill, and it's quite interesting. A diamond has 64 facets, 64 sides to a true pure diamond, 64. And what you have to do when you polish a diamond, you have to polish every facet of the diamond relative to every other facet next to it. And it's a very refined process, which takes tremendous strength, eyeglasses, and polishing it. And once the diamond, even if it's a small diamond, it still has 64 facets that must be polished. And of course, you take a piece of glass and with a diamond polisher, you turn it into something worth thousands of dollars. It's the same thing in life, is that you have many facets and you have to polish the facets in your life. And writing a book is exactly like being a diamond polisher. You can have the framework very quickly, but then it's the polishing that makes the book excellent. And so just remember that. The diamond comes out of the ground. They say a diamond is just a lump of coal that made good under pressure.
That's
So every person,
heat and pressure,
to be a diamond.
Yeah.
So Dad, we have a question from the audience.
Yes.
And we can all try to take turns answering it, because I think this is a pretty significant one. So the question is, how do you define success? Because success is so much different for so many different people. What do you think some of the core tenets of success are, and how would you define that, Dad?
Well, when I was a young man, I wanted to be seen to be smart. So I began to read about all the big philosophers. And I read something from Will Durant about the greatest philosophers, greatest thinkers in history. And I bought book after book. I have shelves of books from Aristotle and Epictetus and Herodotus and so on. And all the way up to the modern philosophers of Marx and Schopenhauer and so on. So anyway, but Aristotle was the teacher philosopher. There was Socrates, and then Plato was the teacher or the student of Socrates, and then Aristotle was the student of Plato. But he was the greatest philosopher of all time. And he summarized it. He said, all human action is aimed at achieving the happiness and satisfaction of the actor. So every human behavior has something else behind it. I work hard. Why? So I could earn money. Why? So I could have a home and a wife and children. Why? So I'll be happy. Or I work hard to be thin and diet and everything else. Why? Because when I look good, I feel happy. So everything is aimed at happiness. And the only true measure is what makes you happy. So when you say, what is the key to success? Are you a happy person? Are you happy in your work? Are you happy in your relationships? Are you happy with your family, with your health? And you can always tell if you're not happy because you just feel uncomfortable. So therefore, the true measure of success is that you are genuinely happy with your life. And if you're not, people ask me all the time, what's the key? Just listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Your heart, your brain can rationalize, and that's a great thing. But your heart will always tell you the truth. And if you follow your heart, you will never make another mistake. Now, in a practical, money-driven world, that sounds a little bit loosey-goosey, but it's really the key. Just if your goal is to be happy, if you make a lot of money and that makes you happy, there's a lot of people. There's a poem that we had to study in high school about this man who was admired by everybody. He was the most successful person in the community. He's rich and famous and and one day he went home and blew his brains out.
Oh God.
Jesus.
And the point of the poet was that here's this person who apparently has everything in the outside world, but he's so unhappy he kills himself. So listen to your heart. Your heart will never lead you astray. And if you want to give advice to the people that you care about and they ask you, what should I do here? What should I do there? You say, listen to your heart. Just sit quietly and say, what would be the best thing for me to do? What would make me happy? And with me, I've always encouraged you guys to listen to your heart, to do what makes you happy. And whatever you decide, I back you 100%. Whatever you have decided, I back you 100%. If you change the next day, we back you. Barbara and I, we back you 100%. And it's never less than 100%. So much.
Yeah, and that's true. I remember you've always said that. It's something that you've repeated to both of us probably thousands of times. Is I support you 100%. Any decisions that we make, I back your play.
Yeah, Dad, when you're, just in answering this question, Michael, too, about like what is success, I think you feel successful when you feel happy, when you feel content, when everything feels, in my mind, I think of it as feeling congruent with like what I'm doing and what's important to me is congruent. And I think a lot of it has to do with being proactive, like thinking about what it is, what do you want in terms of like what would make you happy with your family, what would make you happy with your health, what would make you happy with your work, what would make you happy, in all the different facets of your life. And then being proactive and taking actions that are in alignment and working towards those goals, so that ultimately when you accomplish those things, you feel like where you're putting your time and effort is you're investing it in things that matter to you. And so what you achieve with your time, which obviously is our most precious resource, is something that actually matters to you and makes meaning. So, you're investing in your relationships and you're having good relationships, you're going to feel successful. But if you're investing in something that doesn't matter to you at the sacrifice of your relationships, you're not going to feel successful. So I think it's so much about being proactive about what matters to you and living your life in a reflection of what matters to you, that ultimately I think feels successful. It makes you feel accomplished. Hence, the accomplished woman is, I think we all have to define it differently for ourselves to decide what is our success, what makes us feel accomplished in every area. So
Dad would say something like, you feel good and in control when you're working towards a goal, a clearly defined goal that you have.
Yes.
I would like to make just a small distinction. I make a distinction in my mind about happiness versus fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not happy all the time. Sometimes, kids wake you up in the middle of the night. You got the drudgery of the day. Things are happening. Sometimes you're just reacting all day. But if you're balanced properly, at the end of the day, you think about kids. Kids are a lot of work, but they make you feel fulfilled. Not necessarily happy all the time, but all the time you're fulfilled. So to that point, you have to make these investments. And I think as you get older, you have to make bigger commitments and you accept more responsibility. And as you do that, you're not necessarily always happy, but you're fulfilled in that you're living up to your full potential. And I think that's kind of that little voice in the back of your mind that's kind of always chattering. It says it's nagging at you, and it's saying maybe you should be living up to your full potential, or maybe you're not living up to your full potential, and so you have to start making better decisions and move that trajectory towards that goal. If that makes sense.
And you have different goals, and some goals are long term. There's a story that Zig Ziglar tells about this farmer, and the farmer's got 3 sons, and he wakes them up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he gets them out to feed the horses and collect the eggs and get something working for an hour or 2 hours, and then he trucks them off to school and brings them back and puts them to work again, and so on. And a friend of the farmer says, Clem, he said, you don't have to work those boys so hard to raise a crop. And he said, I ain't raising crops. He said, I'm raising boys.
Yeah.
That is the idea, is that with your children, you're raising children for the long term. This is a 20, 30, 40. And look at this. You guys are now more than 40 years old. Our youngest child's 33, and then David, and so on. And so we've been investing in the long term. And that's what you do with your children. You don't expect to get immediate rewards. You just have to recognize that what you're doing is a long-term investment of your time. Just like working out and losing weight. It's very painful.
Hey, Dad, you have 8 grandchildren.
Yeah, 8 grand.
I've met a couple people, older than me, and they're like, they define success in terms of how many grandchildren they have.
Yeah, it's true.
And you, Christina and Michael, have contributed 3 each. So that's wonderful. The mark of the leader is long-term thinking. Every single study on leadership says leaders think and act long-term. They are very quick to make decisions in the short term when situations change. And in this case, I'm talking about generals and military leaders in war and battle. but they're long-term thinkers in business and in personal life. So with regard to your kids, it's like the farmer. I'm raising boys, I'm not raising a crop. You and I, or you now, are raising leaders for the future, treating them like they are excellent people. So what they do is they set bigger standards for themselves. Now, going back to my thought on happiness, I just recalled this, is that happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. So when you have a clear goal and you plan how to achieve it, and then you start to work your plan, then what happens is it makes you happy. You are designed in such a way that you are only happy when you're moving toward the achievement of something that's important to you. People without goals are angry, they're morose, they drink, they shoot dope, and so on and so forth. But people with clear goals and objectives and a plan to achieve them feel happy all the time. Their body releases endorphins and dopamine, which are nature's happy drugs. And they basically, every time you take a step toward a goal that's important to you, your body releases these chemicals and rewards you. It says you're doing the right thing. Here's a reward, like giving a sugar cube to a horse. Then your body gets a sugar cube of dopamine and it makes you happy. And every time you do it, it makes you happier.
All right. So let's take some questions from the audience.
Yes, absolutely.
So one of the things I've noticed, because I travel around quite a bit and I meet people, and I'm naturally associated with you, Dad. You have generated so much positive rapport and love all over the world. I mean, you're just, and you've given so much value. So many people attribute their success to learning from you or reading one of your books. Can you tell us what does that inspire you? Does it motivate you? How does that make you feel?
Well, I've done a lot of spiritual study, again, thousands of hours. And a little thing I came across has been very important. It's called that the most important attitude that you can have is an attitude of gratitude. Is to think about the things that you're thankful for. And I am so thankful for a happy life, a wonderful wife, wonderful children, just doing some things that I enjoy. I want to share it with people. I am so grateful for my success, if you like, but I want other people to have the same experience. And so I teach them and I preach them and I do podcasts and I write books and articles and do interviews and everything else. And every one of them, like today, is focused on helping our friends to become more successful and happier faster. And you know that we've talked about what I call the factor, ER, is happier, faster, rich, thin, and so on. Our job, yours and mine, what everything we do is to put an which means more, faster, and so on, behind other people to help them achieve their goals faster, or better, or cheaper, or easier, and so on. And it's a continuous source of motivation. I love to share ideas with people, and they enjoy the ideas. And we go back and forth, and it's like music. It's like ballroom dancing. It's just like music. So with the audience knows that I care about them. And so we have a great time. It's me. It's one on group. You've heard that?
Mm.
Ron Arden used to say that after he'd seen me speak. He said, I've never seen this before. It's one on group. It's one person multiplied times the entire audience. And that makes me happy.
Here's a really good question. What advice would you give yourself? What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Well, I would say find something that you really enjoy doing, and then put your whole heart into becoming good at it. is you cannot control the long term, what will happen 5 years or 10 years from now. You can only control what you do today and dedicate yourself to continuous personal improvement. Just get better. Say, what do I really want to be, do, have in life? And what you want is, first of all, you want to have more money. And people say, well, money is, black or evil or something. No, money represents freedom. And I've studied freedom for many years. And what we've discovered is that everybody wants freedom. And freedom means that you don't worry about money, that you have a car that works, that you have a life that works. Freedom is so important, and it takes money for you to have freedom. So think of money in terms of freedom. And I studied this subject, and I learned something very interesting. I said, nobody ever thinks that they have too much freedom. Nobody ever says, I have too much freedom. Could you take a little bit away? It never happened. Sometimes in politics, people think that others have too much freedom, and therefore their freedom should be taken away, but not me, because I never have too much freedom. So it's a wonderful thought. And the only way you can be free is if you have enough money to support your lifestyle. So that's why you want to earn more money. And it's a very good goal, because freedom is the essence of everything. I've always given you guys total freedom. Mental, emotional, financially. You've always been free, and it hasn't spoiled you. It's made you focused and dedicated and intelligent and ambitious and goal-oriented and everything else. Because when a person has complete freedom, then they think, how can I realize my full potential? I could do more of this and more of that, and I could learn this, and I could go here. Michael, how many countries have you been to?
35.
Yes. How many you are, Christina?
Oh, yeah. Gosh. 35, 40.
Yes. Imagine that. Do you know that 80% of Americans have not been outside of the country? I've been to 124 countries. Barbara's been to 100 countries. It's the most amazing damn thing. You've had the freedom to travel, to go places, to see different things. Do you know what that does for your mind? When you expose yourself to new ideas and new cultures and new people, is you're never the same again. They say a mind expanded by a new idea never shrinks back to the same size it was before.
You can't go back to ignorance, right?
Yeah, you can't go back.
So before we move on, I wanted to bring up something you taught me about money, which I think was really valuable, and I think everybody listening and watching will probably find valuable as well. You said, Michael, money is the byproduct of value. It is not something you go out and get. Like, that's not how you think about money. You think about what kind of value can I contribute? Yeah. And you think in terms of value. There's only two ways to make money. You can contribute more value, or you can make yourself more valuable by learning new skills. And when you think about money that way, you know exactly how to get more of it. It's not a mystery anymore. And so that's something that was revelatory in my formative years.
Yes.
So I thought I'd share.
Well, and the more you serve, the more you deserve.
Ooh, that's great.
You know, if you just understood that your job in life is to serve other people and to make other people happier, and whether it's with products or services or being a good friend or whatever it happens to do, whenever you do something in your work that improves the quality of life of other people, you make yourself more valuable. And instead of thinking about how can I earn more money, just focus on helping more people to achieve their goals, and the money will come. What is that old saying? Is do what you love to do and the money will come. If you do what you love to do, you'll never work another day for the rest of your life. And so you fall in love with serving other people, with doing what you do that makes a difference for other people, which is what we do in our family. is we've always been focused on how can we help other people to achieve their goals. And that's what motivates me is I'm so grateful for you guys and my beautiful wife and my success that I want to help other people to do it. The best way now is by Zoom, by podcast, because now we can go all over the world. We have some of our friends here. Here's a Fata Miller, who's come on the line, and Winnie Perte, and Johnny Baptiste, and Marshall Gued, and Iris Woman, and so many wonderful people. I'm so happy to see you. I wish I could talk and write back to you.
So Dad, we have some good news. We're going to be doing this once a week.
Yes.
And then we're going to be audience driven. So everybody listening, everybody watching, if you want us to address a specific question or subject, yeah, please just let us know. We're going to review every single comment.
Yeah.
We're going to pull all the best questions out. Obviously, we'd love to answer every question, but we'll run at a time. So please, so leave your questions or subject focus in the comments. We will go and peruse every single one, and we will extract all the best questions, and we'll answer them next week. I don't know if it's going to be exactly this time, but we are going to do it every week. So thank you all for listening and attending. This has been episode number 1 of the Brian Tracy Experience.
Thank you
with your co-host Christina Tracy Stein and Michael Tracy, and of course Brian Tracy.
Brian Tracy, yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
and
you.
until next week.
We'll see you next time.